It claims Junior mauled one of Queen Latifah's dogs to death. Mr. Milan covered up Junior's violence by instructing his staff to tell Queen Latifah and others that a car killed her dog.
They thought they were walking into a celebrity's home. What they found felt more like a crime scene, minus the yellow tape, footage, files, unseen confessions, legal silence money, and at the center of it all, the world's most famous dog trainer, whose empire was built on trust, calmness, and controversy. But this wasn't just about dogs anymore. It was about lies, loss, and the collapse of an American dream. For years, Cesar Millan stood tall as the dog whisperer, a man who could seemingly tame any animal with a look, a household name, a global empire, a savior for misbehaved pets. But behind the smile, the calm voice, and the wagging tails, a darker narrative was buried deep in the vaults of his private estate. And when that estate was finally examined in 2021, after he moved out, the truth was too big to ignore. Cesar was born on August 27, 1969, in the rural outskirts of Culiacan, Mexico. His family lived in a small farming community without running water or electricity. From a young age, he showed a unique bond with animals, especially dogs. His grandfather called him El Perrito, the dog boy, marveling at how Cesar could calm the most aggressive of dogs without fear. That gift, that uncanny instinct, was the seed of a dream that would later change his life, and in many ways, change the world's view on dog behavior. At just 13, Cesar made a bold declaration to his friends. One day, he would become the greatest dog trainer in the world. Most laughed, but Cesar wasn't joking. He didn't study animal behavior in a university. He learned in the dirt and dust, watching how farm dogs sorted themselves, how the strongest led through presence, not punishment. He took mental notes of their natural pack order, of how calm confidence commanded respect. It was this organic education that would later become the foundation for his now infamous calm assertive energy method. In 1990, at the age of 21, he made a desperate move. With only $100 in his pocket and no knowledge of English, he crossed the border into the United States illegally. The journey was harrowing. He paid a smuggler, nearly drowned, and arrived in San Diego with nothing but hope. His first nights were spent sleeping under freeway overpasses. His days were filled with washing cars and picking up odd jobs, but in the background, he never lost focus. He still wanted to work with dogs. It didn't take long for people to notice his unusual talent. While working at a dog grooming salon, customers were stunned at how even the most vicious dogs mellowed in Cesar's hands. Soon, word spread. The Mexican guy who didn't speak English could do something no one else could. He could understand dogs. He started getting calls across San Diego to help with troubled pets. Then, he opened the Dog Psychology Center in South Los Angeles. It wasn't fancy, just an empty lot. But what happened there was extraordinary. Dogs considered untrainable by others were transformed under his guidance. And then, Hollywood knocked. One of his earliest celebrity clients was Jada Pinkett Smith. She was so impressed with his work that she offered to fund his English lessons. But she gave him a deadline: learn the language and formalize the business in a year, or go back to walking dogs. It was a pivotal moment, and Cesar rose to the challenge. By 2004, National Geographic took a chance on the undocumented immigrant with the mysterious skill. The Dog Whisperer premiered to modest expectations, but exploded into a global phenomenon. Cesar became a household name. His unique method of exercising authority through energy, not just commands, captivated millions. Audiences watched in awe as he entered chaotic homes and restored peace, not just for dogs, but for their owners too. The brand grew rapidly. Books, merchandise, speaking tours, a magazine, even his own line of dog food. At its peak, Cesar's Way Inc. was worth over $25 million. For a boy who had once slept on the floor of a barn, it was the American dream, fully realized. But dreams, when stretched too far, can tear. Behind the booming empire, cracks began to show. Cesar's method, rooted in dominance theory, started to face serious backlash from the veterinary and animal behavior communities. Experts argued that many of his techniques, such as alpha rolls, finger jabs, and choke collars, were outdated and potentially abusive. One of the most disturbing moments came in 2006 when an episode showed Cesar hanging a dog named Shadow by a choke chain until the dog collapsed. Viewers were horrified. Complaints flooded National Geographic. The scene sparked national debate on what constituted training versus abuse. What aired was already shocking, but unedited footage discovered years later in Cesar's estate showed that the dog remained unconscious for nearly 30 seconds. Staff had raised concerns before the scene was filmed. They were overruled. In response to the backlash, National Geographic began including disclaimers warning viewers not to replicate Cesar's techniques at home. But the damage had been done. His methods were no longer beyond reproach. Then, in 2010, tragedy struck his personal life. Daddy, his beloved pit bull and co-star, passed away from cancer. Daddy wasn't just a pet. He was Cesar's emotional anchor, his partner in both life and television. Cesar was devastated. He wrote in his private journals that when Daddy died, a part of him died too. He had slept on the floor beside him in the final weeks, unwilling to leave his side even for a moment. Only months later, Cesar's wife of 16 years, Illusion, filed for divorce. The proceedings were brutal. She demanded primary custody of their children, significant financial support, and several properties. That same year in May, Cesar attempted suicide. Medical records later found in his estate detailed how he overdosed on Xanax and sleeping pills. He was rushed to the ICU and spent 3 days in intensive care before being transferred to a psychiatric facility. This wasn't a cry for help. It was a serious attempt to end his life. Professionally, things spiraled too. The Dog Whisperer ratings began to slip. Competing shows promoting positive reinforcement gained traction. National Geographic canceled the show in 2012 after 9 seasons. Cesar tried to reboot with new shows, Cesar 911, Dog Nation, but none captured the same magic. Behind the scenes, his once flourishing businesses were hemorrhaging money. And then came 2015. During a training segment on Cesar 911, a French bulldog named Simon attacked a pig on camera. The pig's ear was torn. Viewers were outraged. Animal control and law enforcement launched an investigation. What wasn't aired was far more chaotic. In footage later found among his video archives, it was revealed that Simon had a known history of attacking small animals. Yet he was introduced to the pigs without proper restraint. The staff struggled to control the situation. The pig required veterinary attention, and investigators, though they ultimately didn't file charges, considered felony-level animal cruelty. Cesar's legal team argued it was an accident during a legitimate training exercise, but internal emails uncovered later suggested otherwise. Producers had instructed editors to cut around more aggressive corrections to hide the rough edges of Cesar's approach. One email read, "We need to cut around the more aggressive corrections. Focus on the before and after, not the process." Another recommended using camera angles to obscure forceful contact with the dogs. The goal was clear: show results, not the uncomfortable truth of how they were achieved. But behind the camera, the reality was far more severe. Former employees described a toxic environment. Trainers who disagreed with Cesar's methods were dismissed. Staff were afraid to speak out. Legal records revealed that since 2007, there had been at least 12 confidential settlements between Cesar's company and pet owners. The total payout? Over $1.5 million. Some dogs were allegedly injured during training. One German Shepherd suffered 3 broken ribs. A Cocker Spaniel developed chronic anxiety requiring medication after a session at the Dog Psychology Center. Each settlement came with a non-disclosure clause. None of it ever reached the press. Until now. As Cesar's fame waned in the United States, he pivoted. His brand leaned heavily into international markets, especially in Asia, where criticism of dominance-based methods was far less vocal. By 2017, over 70% of his company's income came from China and Southeast Asia. But even abroad, the numbers told a grim story. Cesar's flagship Dog Psychology Center in Santa Clarita was operating at a massive loss. Many of his product lines had been discontinued. Bankruptcy filings showed one of his companies had $4.2 million in liabilities and less than $900,000 in assets. Another had lost $1.7 million in 3 years. Perhaps most damning of all were the personal training videos discovered at his estate. These weren't edited. These weren't scripted. These were raw. They showed dogs yelping, flinching, displaying signs of fear, dilated pupils, rapid breathing, tucked tails. Behaviorists reviewing the footage said the dogs were not calm or submissive. They were scared. And yet, on camera, Cesar called this surrender. The unfiltered reality painted a different picture than what millions had watched on TV for nearly a decade. And the question lingered. Had the world been fooled by editing and charm? In a final public statement, Cesar acknowledged that his methods had evolved over time. He insisted that he remained committed to saving dogs and keeping families together. But for many in the animal welfare community, that statement came too late. Cesar Milan's legacy is now a subject of fierce debate. Some say he saved thousands of dogs from euthanasia. Others believe he set back humane dog training by years. Today, his empire has shrunk. The Dog Whisperer brand lives on through reruns and online videos, but the man who once commanded the world stage now walks with a far smaller shadow. In the end, Cesar Millan's story isn't just about dogs. It's about what happens when success masks accountability, about how image can outpace ethics, and how the truth, no matter how long it hides, always finds its way to the surface. So, what do you think? Was Cesar a misunderstood genius, or a trainer who let fame rewrite his methods? Let us know in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe for more true stories that pull back the curtain on fame, fortune, and the fallout no one sees coming. Because sometimes, what's buried in the backyard says more than what's aired on TV.